What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related, and it's season opening day. The Bulls play their first game against the Miami Heat today, and while we do have a player possibly out with injury, they do too. We're going to talk about what this season starting means for the Chicago Bulls and what they can accomplish this season. We're going to get into all that and more right after this.
You are now tuned in to Chicago Bulls Central, your number one place for all Chicago Bulls news and content.
All right, Bulls fans. So I did drop an emergency episode yesterday. Zach LaVine is listed as questionable tonight against the Miami Heat. As Alex Caruso is also listed as probable. I think there's still a better chance that not both these players play. I actually, after doing some thinking on it and some of the comments from you guys as well, this may very well be the Bulls just setting up Zach LaVine to have a rest day against the Washington Wizards in our first back-to-back to open up the season, right? We have two back-to-backs the first 2 weekends of the season. We have the Wizards Friday and then the Cavs Saturday, and then we have back-to-backs Friday and Saturday again next week as well against the Spurs and I believe the 76ers. So I think that this is the Bulls just setting it up to where when Zach LaVine does have to start sitting games for rest day, it's already on the injury report. It's already out there so that they can't necessarily be fined by the NBA for sitting a healthy starter, things like that. But I just do think, and maybe that's just me being a little too hopeful, I just expect Zach LaVine to play tonight against the Miami Heat. I just really do have that in my mind that he's going to play. He's not going to start the season off. Now, with that being said, though, right, even with my hopes aside in that, if Zach LaVine's knee isn't 100% healthy, and I know as soon as you hear something about Zach LaVine's knee, you get think pieces from the Bulls fans, and that's because, listen, we've been through a lot, especially when it comes to knees. So, I understand that, right? And, you have people saying, well, Zach clearly hurt himself in the last preseason game, or you could tell Zach was doing this. Like, Zach did look rusty, right? I'm not necessarily, when everything that we've heard is Zach has his pop back, Zach's fully healthy, Zach is this and that. So, like, I don't think that is going to be something, well, not to say that it's not going to be nagging. Zach is absolutely going to have rest days over the course of this season. It's going to happen for Zach LaVine. When you look at having that knee surgery over the course of the offseason, he is going to have rest days. It's just going to happen. It's going to be pre-built in to the schedule. And when they look at back-to-backs, how he's feeling, things like that, he is going to get rest days over the course of this season for the Chicago Bulls. But with that being said, too, though, is that we need to still build that continuity. We need to still have Zach LaVine out there for as many games as possibly can. But we all know the biggest thing is having this team fully healthy by the playoffs. And if it takes some game management, if it takes some pain management, if it takes rest days for that knee to get there, it just is what it is, right? Yes, it's going to suck to not have Zach LaVine out there for certain games, but it also forces players to play in other positions. Patrick Williams could benefit a lot from Zach LaVine sitting certain games. Now, whether he starts this game or not, when you look at Patrick Williams and the fact of how timid he is out there when he's out there with Vooch, DeMar, and Zach, I would hope that Billy Donovan, at that point, if we have a scheduled rest day for Zach LaVine, factors in a couple of more series or whatever else for Patrick Williams to really have the ball in his hands and maybe run a little bit more things through him. So it sucks, right? And I'm not trying to spin this as a complete positive because it's not. You want to have your $200 million player out there healthy every night if possible. But at the end of the day, the Bulls can use these scheduled rest days. They can use these to try to, make sure everybody is ready by the playoffs. Make sure everybody kind of is forced to do some things or to carry a little bit more weight from night in, night out to help DeMar, to help Vooch, things like that. So we'll see what happens with that. Overall, if he does not play today, does that affect how I see the game going? Absolutely. Zach LaVine's a huge part of it. He's a huge threat. Even if Zach LaVine isn't playing at 100%, you still have to play and game plan for him. So taking that away from a team in the Miami Heat who has been to a finals, like it's concerning, right? But, to talk about that, Patrick Williams also won the starting power forward position, which I dropped an episode on that as well. Shout out to Patrick Williams for doing whatever he did in practice to get that starting spot back, but he needs to continually earn that spot every single game, every single night. And hopefully this has been a wake-up call. As I said in the video I dropped yesterday, emergency, once that was announced, is that Patrick Williams needs to use this to just be focused, to bring in a little bit more focus, to play with a little bit more edge. You almost lost your starting position, and you almost lost it just because of the energy and lack of aggression that you play with. So hopefully that is a wake-up call for Patrick Williams. Now, looking at the Miami Heat's injury report, it looks like Victor Oladipo is going to be out with knee tendonitis as well. You got Omer Yurtseven. Yeah, Steven. He's out also with the opener against the Bulls. Now, some people thought he was going to be starting for the Miami Heat. So, both teams coming in with injuries. This game tonight is, and as I've said before, the Bulls need to set the tone today. The Bulls are coming into this season with a lot of doubts surrounding them. Considering you look at, like, NBA has them ranked 17th, I believe, in their power rankings. Nobody's really believing that the Chicago Bulls are going to be able to come in and did what they did in the first half of the season, especially when you look at Lonzo Ball being out, the injuries around Zach LaVine and Patrick Williams, what he's going to be. This is a season for the Chicago Bulls to come in and be able to tell us where they sit early, how they play, the intensity level that they sustain in playing these games is going to be important. There's so many storylines coming into the season, so many things that this team needs to prove. They need to prove that last season was not a fluke. They need to prove that they are one of the better teams in the East. They need to prove that they can still compete. While teams in the East have definitely improved on paper more than the Chicago Bulls, we need to show that we can still compete with those teams. This season, the beginning of the season, I already highlighted in yesterday's video just the importance of the first 2 weeks of this season for the Chicago Bulls, but it all starts tonight. Regardless if Zach's playing, regardless if Zach's not, everything starts tonight, right or wrong, right? How the Bulls perform in this game against the Miami Heat is going to inform a lot of the national conversation around the Chicago Bulls going forward. It's just, like I said, right or wrong, that's just going to be what it's going to be. So as the Bulls look to start the season off and hopefully get it off on the right foot, they need to come in. They need to lock in. Tonight's game against the Miami Heat is going to be a game where we know they're going to try to turn it up defensively. We know they're going to try to run us off our spots. We know that they're going to try to muck up the game as much as possible. They're absolutely going to do that. It is what it is, right? They're going to try to muck up this game. They're going to try to use Jimmy Butler on the offensive and defensive versatility. And their team, the Miami Heat's team defense is great. And we're going to get to see also Billy Donovan and how he's going to be hopefully better coach this team against some of the strategists in the NBA. We start off against Eric Spoelstra, who is one of the best coaches in the NBA, and his game plan. What and how has Billy Donovan and this coaching staff set up the Chicago Bulls? We have gotten to focus on this opening night game since training camp opened. Since the last preseason game, hopefully they've been focused on stopping what the Miami Heat do. The Bulls' defensive intensity that they set in this game, the way that the Bulls bench can come in and keep the pace, push the pace, hopefully grow some leads as well. It's all going to be evident tonight against the Miami Heat. We need to see it all, period. There's no questions. Well, there's tons of questions, but we need to start seeing some of the answers to those questions from the Chicago Bulls in both the players and the coaching staff. This is a great first test. This is a great way to open up the season for a team that has playoff aspirations. Yes, it's a tough schedule. Yes, it's a lot of back-to-backs, but guess what? Ain't nobody writing or crying home or making excuses for the Chicago Bulls. They have to show up this season. We can't have the down on nationally televised games. We can't play down in competition. We can't lose games against teams that are considerably worse than us and expect us to be taken seriously in a tough Eastern Conference. The way that this team performs tonight is going to be hugely key in setting the tone for the season. Regardless, win, lose, no draws in basketball, this team needs to come out and perform, period. They need to show that they belong. If they don't get the victory, how do they lose those games? What are the things that they can build on as they face tougher teams going forward? Those are the questions that are going to be answered tonight. And hopefully in that first 2 weeks of the season, we can come out of this first 2 weeks with everybody saying the Bulls are going to be a tough team, or we can come out of these first 2 weeks with people saying, see, told you about the Chicago Bulls. They're not going to be legit. They're going to be fighting for a play-in spot. The Bulls have to show that resiliency early in this season. There's no excuses around it. ISO ball has to go away. Player movement has to stay in, right? The bench has to continually perform at a high level. And then the health, we need to stay as healthy as possible. These are the questions coming into this season for the Chicago Bulls, and there's ones that they are going to get a chance to answer early. But let me know down below, what do you think about this game against the Miami Heat? What are some of the keys to this game? I'm looking at the bench. The bench is going to be hugely key to what this team does against the Miami Heat. When you look at them being a little bit thinned out as well, but when you look at Tyler Hero, Duncan Robinson, both players who can get off against the Chicago Bulls, not to mention Jimmy Butler, that starting lineup, Bam, what does Vooch do with Bam? All these questions are out there for this team, and hopefully we get positive answers for it in this, and just seeing the effort of this team. Preseason could definitely be a fluke, but hopefully this team shows that the preseason play, that the change in the offense, the change in the defensive intensity, the change in the focus, it wasn't just something just for preseason. It's something that we're going to build on for this NBA season for the Chicago Bulls. That's what we need to see. Period. That's it. This team has to perform. We can't come out flat. We can't have the slow start. Shout out to Winton Mahorn, who keeps mentioning the Bulls have to get away from the slow starts. We have to also not carry over the bad third quarters that we had so often last season as well. This team has to stand up. This team has to play well. This team has to perform. This team has to perform when the lights are brightest as well. And I think we're going to get the answers to that. And I think it's going to be a positive answer in the first few weeks of the season. Let me know what you guys think on everything down below. We will have our pregame, halftime hangout, and postgame live streams all tonight. So make sure you're tuned in and hit that subscribe button. Make sure you're following the show at Bulls Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, bullscentralpod@gmail.com. Lastly, if you want to leave a text and a voicemail, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We're the number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related because of you guys. And like I like to end every episode on, go Bulls. Love you guys. Peace and see red.
This has been a presentation of the Breaks Media.